Manny Pacquiao will forever be remembered as one of the best boxers to ever do it. However, the journey came with a lot of challenges in the ring. Boxing's only 8 division world champion had faced 8 losses in his 26-year professional career. Tonight on Round by Round, we will go through the setbacks that could have either brought out the best in Manny Pacquiao or posed the most stringent tests. First on our list, Rustico Terocampo. Ryan, this was the first boxer who handed Manny Pacquiao his first loss by way of knockout in February of 1996. This was also the same guy who broke his 11 fight win streak. Ryan, there was already a chatter surrounding Manny Pacquiao at the time. But why do you think this knockout loss did not hinder his momentum?
Well, I think it's because it came when he was young, and it was a one-punch knockout. It was one shot, and it wasn't like he took a sustained beating. I still remember Kenito Henson's call that fight. His eyes are crossed. His eyes are crossed. And I'm like, oh, wow. Really, it's Pacquiao, because Pacquiao had this very aggressive devil-may-care hairstyle. And I think that sometimes the only way to get someone to calm down is to put a right hand in their mouth. And that's sort of what Terocampo did.
Next on our list is Medgoing Singh Surat 3K Battery. Ryan, this guy has always been marketed as the guy who defeated Manny Pacquiao by way of third-round TKO in September of 1999. I know Manny struggled to make weight for this fight and eventually lost the belt on the scales. Do you think the fight could have played out differently if it happened in a different weight class, or let's say Manny had a good weight cut?
Well, the thing with Manny is that he was a growing fighter, and it was only going to be so long that he was going to be able to stay at 112. So he was always fighting on borrowed time. So I think that he kind of went into the ring dead drained. I remember his trainer at the time was telling me that Manny was like bone dry, couldn't get out the water out of him. So there was no way he could make 112. The interesting thing about that is that it was a Filipino who had avenged that. It was Malcolm Tunicao, who eventually avenged that defeat for Pacquiao. But then Tunicao's title reign ended early as well and launched the career of another great Thai fighter, Pongsak Wangjongkam.
Next on our list is the legendary Eric Morales. We all know Manny won the last 2 fights in their trilogy, but can you say, Ryan, that the first fight with Eric Morales, wherein Manny lost by a unanimous decision in March of 2005, was the turning point of his career and really brought out the best in the Pac-Man?
I think so, because it kind of forced Manny to diversify his attack. He started throwing more of a right hook. And now Manny has a pretty good right hook, and I think you could point to the Morales fight to show that, because that was a real weakness in him. If you got over to Manny's right, you really could, there wasn't a whole lot he could do. He had a jab, but jab was just to throw the left hand, and you would already know what he was going to do after he threw the jab. But yeah, I remember asking Pacquiao about that, about the 12th round specifically, when Morales turns to southpaw. I'm like, what were you thinking then? And he said, I wish he had done it sooner.
Next on our list, Timothy Bradley. The first fight between Manny Pacquiao and Timothy Bradley has been up for debate till this day. Ryan, I want you to play the devil's advocate. Why do you think those 2 judges merited the fight in favor of Bradley when they faced each other in June of 2012?
Oh, because they don't know what they're looking at. They're watching a different fight, and it was a clown show. That what those judges did was a disgrace. It was one of the most controversial decisions in recent boxing history, and nothing makes people doubt the integrity of the sport quite like that.
Next on our list, no need for introduction, but we're still gonna mention his name, Juan Manuel Marquez. No questions asked, Ryan. This was, hands down, the biggest knockout win of 2012. And it was the most excruciating defeat of Manny Pacquiao. I know the standing of the rivalry between Marquez and Pacquiao is 2 wins for Manny, 1 for Marquez, and 1 draw. But with that knockout win, is it safe to say that Marquez got the last laugh in that rivalry?
Yeah, I think that it did, and it's Marquez is like, oh, I got the win. I don't need to fight this guy anymore. No, it's fine. And Manny wanted the fifth fight, but Marquez like, no, it's cool. I got the win. That's all I wanted. I was there at that fight. I was ringside, and I remember Manny falling, and I didn't even watch. I didn't even see the punch. I didn't watch the count. I knew the fight was over when I saw Marquez's hands go up. Right, but I was sitting at ringside, and I remember. Just before the fight was about to start, all of a sudden I had to use the restroom. I'm like, I can't get up now. I got to watch this thing. Hopefully it'd be a kind of boring fight so that, I don't have to use the restroom. But it was one of the greatest fights ever. And that was probably the knockout, one of the greatest knockouts in boxing history, not just for how it looked, but the significance of it. It was really one of the best fighters in the world getting knocked out cold, maybe the best fighter in the world getting knocked out cold. So it was, yeah. And I remember the next morning, Manny still hosted his church service and he said something like, oh, better luck next time. I'm like, well, I guess, yeah.
Another guy on the list, Floyd Mayweather Jr. Ryan, you're also there at the MGM Grand to watch that fight. It remains as it was you. It was you. I was doing it remotely in Manila. It remains as the highest grossing bout in history. But many felt that the fight didn't live up to the expectations. But do you believe that it wouldn't be the impression if both men fought 5 years earlier?
I think perhaps. I think, it would have been, or Manny would have had a better chance. I saw that when I was watching the fight, what shocked me, or not really shocked me, but it was noticeable, is that Manny was just a little too small compared to Floyd. Floyd was a little bit bigger. So when Floyd did get hurt, he was able to recover because he was, not getting hit by a much larger man. But Manny, I thought that, first off, his shoulder, I think that really hurt him because he wasn't able to really snap a right hook. And, and I do believe he was really hurt because I remember I was in the gym one day with him right after that fight, a couple months later. And Freddie was trying to get him to throw a combination and finish with a hook. And he was finishing with a jab instead, right? Usually it's like a hook and roll. He was throwing a jab and then trying to get it to the side. And then Freddie asked him, why are you not throwing the hook? He's like, oh, that's how I got hurt last time. And Freddie's like, you're not still worried about that, are you? So I know that was a real injury. And anyone who says otherwise, they're ridiculous.
Next on our list, the famous or infamous Jeff Horn.
Oh my goodness.
There was controversy in this fight, obviously. I have 2 questions for this one. 2 questions, Ryan. Why wasn't Jeff Horn able to ride on the momentum of that quote-unquote win? Still, a win is a win. Second, why was it easy for Manny Pacquiao to move on from that fight? We all know that he still got a couple of wins after that, and also he won a title.
No, I would say the first answer to the first question is that Jeff Horn had this other business to handle by the name of Terrence Crawford. And the second that fight was announced, I was like, oh, geez. I just give up the belt. What are you doing, man?
Kneel down and give it.
Yeah, just do it. Do a Shawn Michaels. You know what I'm saying? Just lose your smile. Yeah. But I think that was always going to end badly. Anyone could have picked that fight, and I remember just sitting down watching that fight and just knowing exactly what was going to happen. The fight had already played out in my mind, and it was just as bad as it was going to be. And then the answer to the second fight is, the fight happened in Australia. I don't even know if the TV signals got over to the rest of the world. It's so far away from everywhere. Yeah. But yeah, I was at that fight too. And I remember I was not sure if I was going to cover that fight, but I really wanted to see a kangaroo and a koala, and that was really like the big part of it. I was like, oh yeah, like the last second, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go there. And it was funny because it was like so far of a flight, and I'm like, the Philippines is supposed to be on the same side of the world as Australia, and it was still a really long flight. So I was just like, man, like Australia should really like try to pull itself closer to the rest of the world if they want people to watch their boxing matches. But yeah, I think that Pacquiao. I thought that Pacquiao pulled out that fight, and it is what it is. I remember a couple other guys. I remember Hooper. I forget his first. Darren Hooper, I think his name is. He got a really bad, bogus decision. He was a local fighter, a local Olympian. They gave him a really bogus decision on the undercard, and I was like, oh, well, we know what's going to happen now.
Last on our list, Yordenis Ugas. Ryan, if Manny Pacquiao decides to return to boxing, depending on the results of the May 2022 election, let's put it that way, do you think it will be best for Manny, or do you think it will be best for him to move on from Yordenis Ugas like what he did with Jeff Horn?
Oh, you mean Yordenis the Menace Ugas?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that Manny probably wouldn't need to fight Ugas again. I don't think that there's a whole lot of much to gain because I mean, even for Ugas, like Ugas won that fight and it wasn't like the star turning, thing. It's not like everyone's like talking about, oh, we need to see Yordenis Ugas right now. We need to see him in a big fight.
Yeah.
He's got to be on view. I think it'll be almost sort of like the Jeff Horn thing where it's just like, oh, there he is. PBC, I think that they, I mean, what are they going to do? Like, because Errol Spence is still injured, so they don't really know which direction the division's going to turn. Terrence Crawford is fighting Sean Porter. It's just like Ugas, is a very good prize fighter. And unfortunately, with the way that the sports marketing works, that's not all it takes. So I don't think that Pacquiao, there's a huge clamoring to see Pacquiao and against Ugas. I don't think there's a huge clamoring to see Pacquiao in the ring again, period. But if he's going to fight, I think he should fight someone lesser. I think he should, maybe go after
Manageable.
Yeah, someone manageable, like like a squash match, like like the kind of guys that Ryback when they're trying to build him up, just have him like go out there and like do the shell shock on Pacquiao, whatever.
Just feed him more. Anyway,
feed Pacquiao more. That's all it is.